So today I wanted to discuss perfectionism, and for me, perfectionism is an old familiar friend. Um, I think I've had a challenge with perfectionism since I was a kid. In fact, now that I'm talking about it, I remember my father saying to me, probably when I was about 10 years old, he said, "Oh, you're a perfectionist," and I didn't know what a perfectionist was. I said, "No, I'm not. I'm perfect." um, but I thought it was strange, and as I got familiar with the idea, I realized, you know what? I think he's right that I had this uh, impossibly high standard for myself when I did things, and um, you can say there are good sides to it. I think being a perfectionist uh, at times can mean that you have really high standards and good standards. Um, and that in my own experience, I like to do good work. The Unfortunately, there's a downside, at least in my experience, which is um, I very often wouldn't engage in things if I didn't feel that I did well with them almost right out of the starting gate. If I wasn't getting immediate feedback that I liked, or getting feedback from the world that I was doing well with something, very often I would give up almost immediately because it was so uncomfortable for me to feel that something that I was doing was imperfect in some way. Not that even perfection is something that you can attain. And I do want to say that there's just a huge cost in letting perfectionism run different parts of your life. Again, in my own experience, I think there are just countless things that I didn't engage in or didn't really attempt because I felt that I wasn't perfect, or that being somehow imperfect made me feel very uncomfortable. Um, and I think looking at the cost over time has gotten me to really try to shift uh, my experience, or my relationship to perfectionism. The times when it came up or became more obvious, most obvious for me, is when I was sort of forced by circumstances to have to do something, even though I felt that I was terrible at it. And at times I would feel just incredibly paralyzed, and then somehow I'd work through it. And very often, eventually, like most people, you get good at something when you do it a lot. Um, but let's start with the idea of perfectionism, and explore a little bit about where it comes from. I think there are two flavors of it in my experience. One is me just not liking something, if that I'm making, or something that I'm doing, if I feel that it isn't up to a certain standard yet. uh, it makes me feel very uncomfortable when something seems rough or imperfect. um, and the other thing that's very obvious to me is that very often it's the thing that I'm moving away from is my imagined response from other people. If I think, oh, people are going to criticize me or look down on me because of how I did something, immediately I feel very inhibited. Um, so uh, there are two things that I want to explore in terms of how you can begin to relate to perfectionism in a different way. And the first is a bit of a meditation on it, which is, um, I encourage you to think of a specific context where this comes up for you, and notice in your body what it feels like when something seems imperfect for you. What's the discomfort, or whatever word you would use to describe it? What does it feel like in your body? Where is it? How intense is the feeling? And what we can begin to do is see if we can invite the discomfort, get familiar with it, and learn to just sit with it. Learn to be with it so that it's no longer something that we need to run away from. Maybe you can even allow the discomfort to become a little more intense. How big is it in your body? Is it more intense in one place than another? And what would it be like if you could sit with that discomfort just for a few moments each day so that you could get a little bit better at dealing with that, at experiencing that discomfort? What if it was something that you could get good at experiencing? Not something that you have to live with every minute of every day, but just something that you can experience. Not trying to change it, not trying to do anything with it. And notice, does it stay the same? Does it get stronger? Does it move? And each day as you visit that, is it the same? Is it the same moment to moment? Really experiencing something being imperfect. And what is imperfect? Is it something you're doing? Is it you? Is it a part of you? What quality of imperfection are you experiencing? And so by now, maybe you're beginning to get a sense of what this particular flavor of imperfection or discomfort feels like. We're learning to develop comfort in our experience of imperfection. Very often, if you want to learn, you want to learn to experience imperfection in many ways. So now you can begin to come back here. And I want to encourage you the next time you notice yourself getting caught because of a feeling of perfectionism, anytime you notice yourself hesitating, can you slow down and make some room to just experience whatever you're experiencing? And you may find that you can begin to move through that and maybe get to the point where you can challenge yourself to be imperfect and get good at being imperfect. And that brings me to the second point, which I won't go into fully today, but it's really the idea of just showing up for whatever it is you're attempting. Can you at least show up to write something, make a drawing, speak to someone, whatever it is, any of those places where you're hesitating, if you can just show up every day in time, things may get better and better and better. Great.